And we're now officially live to another episode of Autistic Analysis. It's been a good while since we've actually covered one of these. Hello there, everyone. The name is Adam.
Hello, this is the Diopsid, and I'm ready for one of the more complex splat books because Arcane casting is complex overall.
And I'm Mrs. Diopsid, and I have my robe and wizard hat, and I'm ready to go.
By the way, hello there, Dark Sun, and hello there, Jimmy Jones. Um, as for whether or not tea or coffee is better, I'm actually in the tea camp myself. I'm very much a fan of green teas, so I tend to prefer that over, say, coffee.
Yeah, I'm currently drinking coffee right now.
For
I've
me, it
never had
depends on my mood.
hibiscus myself. Oh,
For me, it depends on my mood if I want tea or coffee.
so the way this is going to work, because this is a D&D side book, we can't really show that book. I do have actually its link in the store, in the RPG drive-through store, in the description. Just because it is a genuinely good book. It has quite a few excellent prestige classes, and it also introduces, if you've played 3.5, this is where you would get access to some of the better casting classes, at least ones that you would be more familiar with in later editions. Because there is a runaway success, and that is actually what the one we're starting with, the Warlock.
Yeah,
So,
the Warlock started here, and I would say became popular as an understatement, considering that it eventually became a core class in later editions.
which is a bit weird because I think it's kind of. I don't dislike the Warlock. I just feel like what it does is kind of limited and it takes away from ranged martials.
Yeah, I just remember when I was new to D&D, and I think on my second campaign, I was like I told Mr. Diopsid, I want to play Warlock, and he was like, no, Warlock sucks, but I eventually did play Warlock and I enjoyed it, so there.
I mean,
We'll
the
get to that.
Warlock's not the worst. We'll get into the mechanics. It's just, we'll get into it. So, the
Yeah,
way Warlocks are fluffed, because I like to go a little bit, it's very simple. You make a compact with an outer being, and they're the ones that give you your power, your patron, if you will. And how does it manifest? Well, do you want to be an archer but can hit from really far away and a little harder, and you can customize how it hits? That is how the Warlock do. So let's
Yeah,
go a little bit into this. So they have a d6 hit die, which puts them on par with your rogue. It's on the lower end, but it's a little beefier than what you usually see for for arcane casters.
yep,
Their main stat that they use is charisma, mainly because that affects their DC, the DC of their invocations, which are treated as spell-like abilities. They are like spells, but not quite.
yeah. Unlike fighting, they pretty much have an entirely separate subsystem, which is seen with warlocks, dragon shamans, and a handful of prestige classes. That technically counts as arcane casting for effects that affect arcane casting and arcane casters, but otherwise functions completely different from traditional fancy and casting.
D&D, if you want to fight the gods, you can, but you will die, but you can. Oh, no, no. In 3.5 and later, if it has a stat sheet, you can kill it. It will take a lot of effort, and you might go through several characters, but no, you can totally destroy Zeus if you wanted. Why you would? I mean, he's there, but it takes a lot of effort. I will grant you that. Deities are pretty hard to put down. So, yeah, invocations are not actually spells, so they actually cannot gain any benefits from spell focus. They use ability focus instead, which
Yeah,
they actually cite it's in the monster manual, which is part of the first one. I think is SRD. I could be wrong.
yeah, it is.
Okay, not that it matters because Wizards trying to retroactively change it. I've noticed. That does not count if you have to use multiple characters. No. If you have an epic party that's at the right challenge, that's about near the right challenge rating, you can totally 1v1 Thor and destroy him. Although by that point most players would stop.
To give you an idea, like the farthest I would normally want to go into Epic is 30, because after that point, I think there's just
You might as well
nothing.
go on.
There's like what little balance is left in Epic levels just completely falls off the rails after 30.
I mean, there's kind of after a point there's almost none. It's just by that point there's almost nothing you can throw at them besides gods. Just let your guys retire and become deities themselves, because there's a bunch of lesser deities. Just stab them
Yeah.
as that. So as for the warlock, there's 4 levels of invocation. There's least, lesser, greater, and dark. You always start with 1, which is usually of least. As you gain levels, you can learn new ones, which are in its own table. And eventually, you can develop into a variety of new invocations.
Yeah, I should point out the biggest thing about invocations that make it different from spells is that you can use invocations at will an arbitrary amount of times per day. While that might sound, oh man, that sounds super broken on practice, at the end of the day, none of the invocations are exactly like mind blowing in the sense that having them at will would snap the game in half, like not even
Yeah.
close.
You get like a small, a smaller amount of them.
Significantly smaller.
Oh,
Yeah, like
oh,
than like say like spells for like a sorcerer or something.
oh, the misses is a little too loud. Don't worry, I can fix that right
Oh,
now.
what?
Just a little bit. I'll slightly lower you on my end, too. Just a little bit of
Yeah.
audio balancing. Thanks for that, Jim. So, yeah, the way invocations work, unironically, I think this might be kind of why Pathfinder First Edition decided to make it so that cantrips also were infinite and arbitrary. Because none of them are particularly bullcrappy. I mean, if you metagame it by trying to spam mending until you fix everything 100%, maybe, but you can't fix magic, and on top of that, you need to have all the pieces for it to actually work. You can only fix up to that amount. Like, with some creative thinking, you could probably come up with some pretty nasty ways, but yeah, invocations don't break it. What really kind of does is the infinite Eldritch Blast loop, but even then, it's not that bullcrappy.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, similar to marshals and the Tome of Battle classes, it's just simply doing damage every turn.
The
Which
only
I
reason
prob-
I'd say it's a little bullcrappy is it just really it. I'll just say it. It completely cucks ranged fighters, because
I
this is
mean,
without ammo, effectively.
uh, already just normal casters completely invalidated ranged weapons in 3.5.
True, but there might be a niche, especially if you have a certain wizard type, wizard build that just focuses on like other things. This why bring you can bring a ranger, but why would you ever bring, say, a fighter that specializes in bows? Although you have to be pretty stupid to bring in a fighter that specializes in bows.
It'd be
Are
pretty
you?
stupid to bring in a fighter at all in 3.5.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Technically, you could maybe no.
No,
No.
no.
This isn't fifth edition. For all the crap you give fifth edition, and there's a lot of crap you can give for it, that's one of the few things they did really well, is that fighter actually is pretty good in that one. Now the problem is it gets boring after level 9, but that's because they didn't play test it. Oof. But yeah, Eldritch Blast is their bread and butter. It's a ray attack at 60 feet. It's range touch, which makes it all, which again kind of really makes it so that it is just straight up better than any ranged weapons, but whatever. It does 1d6 points of damage at first level, and it increases in power as it goes along. As for how Eldritch Blast is calculated as a spell, its level's equal to 1/2 your Warlock's class level, rounded down, because that's how 3.5 in any Dungeons and Dragons D20 system always works. If you have a decimal at the end of it, ignore it and just take the whole number. They don't care if it is like 8.95. It is counted as 8 in the calculations. That is how it do, and that is why average base attack bonus, while it's at 3/4 of a level, that's why you don't ever round up. That's why it does what it does. So let's see. Spell penetration feats and some other effects to overcome spell resistance actually does apply to Eldritch Blast, but it's weird. It's one of those weird quasi abilities. It also really only does half damage to objects, which is situational, but it's something you have to keep in mind. I think that mostly only comes into effect with animated objects, right?
No, because when they say object, they mean like the ones that don't have a stat block outside of hardness.
Okay. Okay, I was just wondering. You act like most DMs don't give you infinite arrows. You would be surprised, Dark Sun. You would be surprised. The feat ability focus does increase the DC for all saving throws because, again, it doesn't count as a spell. It does and doesn't. It's kind of, you have to keep this in mind when you're trying to plot out your Warlock. They do get detect magic at will, which, I mean, that sounds kind of cool, but it's just, is this magic? Yes. What type of magic? Yes. No. What specific type? Yes. Why don't you give it to the wizard? I'm just a warlock. They also do get damage reduction, which means that they take a little less damage to anything that's not cold iron, which is pretty nice. Now, as for how high that damage reduction goes up to, it's up to -5. What's the
Well, to be
drawbacks
honest,
of
by the
being a
time it gets
warlock?
to -5, that barely matters in most cases.
I mean, it does do a little less since they have low health, so it's a little nice, but it's not like world ending. It's not like a game breaker. At 4th level,
Uh,
they pick up the ability to commandeer magic items made for other characters. You can take 10 by... this is one of the things Warlocks can really do, is just use magic devices casually. Because they can just take 10 at 4th level and above. It makes them not completely broken, but it does give them some very useful abilities and a wider pool than you'd otherwise think. It's the same type of logic you'd do if you made a rogue that spec'd and used magic device or a bard that did. Because if you do it right, you could hypothetically slam down, maybe not 9th level spells, but you can slam down spells a couple levels higher than anyone else with the right scroll.
I also, and speaking of rogue, I know like you could actually like you can play like a sneakier like warlock easily and like keep up with the rogue and do the rogue's job.
Yeah,
Like
that's kind of my biggest issue with the Warlock as a player class. I'm not a fan of him kind of because of this.
yeah, like you could easily do the rogue's job.
Because
Like
it absolutely cucks rangers, at least when it comes to doing range damage. It doesn't cuck them out of their spells. And it really fucks over, to a degree, bards as well, because
yeah,
they're a charisma
because
build.
in like the gunlock game, like we had like
I mean, at
two
least they
like
don't have like a lot of the really important charisma skills as class skills.
yeah, like Alimento and Buttons, like in the Gunlock game, could keep up with like the Rogue easily, and like do and like yeah,
The only saving grace for both the rogue and the bard is, yes, the warlock doesn't actually get a variety of diplomatic skills as
And
class.
it also doesn't get the very important trap finding ability that rogues get,
That's
which is
useful,
needed in
but
order to utilize disable device in the way that rogues do.
yeah, but most people don't play rogues like that, man. That's what the playtesters at Wizards did, but most in my experiences, most people who play rogues kind of play them more along the lines of like a James Bond kind.
Well, I don't mean like that. I mean like similar to how you need the track feat in order to use survival checks to track stuff. You usually need trap finding in order to, not in order to find traps.
Let's see, any other abilities before we get... they also do pick up Energy Resistance 5, and it eventually becomes Energy Resistance 10. It only applies, by the way, to one type of elemental damage. So acid, cold, electricity, fire. Oh, and or sonic. And I'm wrong. It's 2. Sorry, I had to reread. Warlock. So what do you want to be, Warlock? Yes. No, Warlock's supposed to kind of be a weird subclass of sorcerer I'm getting from just reading this that has a lot of roguelike traits.
Yeah, the only thing is, like, I wish the fluff wasn't such edgelord bait.
Well, I mean, you have to have a patron of some sort. It doesn't have
I
to be.
know,
But, but,
but
but
like, I know, but like, it just feels like a little too, like, I mean,
I know how to
I
ruin
play a
it.
non-edgy warlock, but sometimes I feel like,
Okay,
they,
imagine a goofy, imagine like this goofy guy that's like covered in all of this patchwork colors, and he's like, "Praise be," because his patron's Wooly Rupert. His patron's Wooly
that
Rupert. His goal
actually,
is to destroy all gnomes.
that's a good concept. I like that.
especially the killing all gnomes part. After all, Wooly Rupert, who unfortunately was removed from 5e, was a spelljammer giant space hamster who was evil, whose goal was to erase gnomes from the D&D multiverse.
He's invincible
Oh, who are the
because he has
patrons?
those stats.
Patrons are pretty much any outsiders.
Chaotic outsiders.
Yeah, they tend to be chaotic outsiders, so you can have a chaotic good warlock.
Yeah, that's what I like. It doesn't have to be evil. That's why I like, that, like, you can still be chaotic good.
And last but
Because,
oh, and last but not least, they do have imbue item, which allows them to create magic items, even if they don't have the spells required. They oh, that's kind of, and this is why one of the house rules at the Dice Scum crew, whenever we play D&D, is we don't usually have item creation cost EXP. Warlocks can do that without expending the gold or EXP.
yeah.
That is happy horse shit. That is some happy horse shit. What are the drawbacks for being a warlock? Basically, you're kind of reduced to just doing damage. You
Yeah,
don't really get
like a
spells.
marshal.
Yeah, you don't really get spells. You're the way your Eldritch Blast scales. Oh, don't get me wrong, its Eldritch Blast scales pretty bullshittedly to a degree. 96 ain't bad. 96 at level 20 ain't bad. As for what
I
the
should I should point out though, at the end of the day, Warlock still isn't exactly what I'd call a top tier class because it specializes in probably the least effective way to kill something at higher levels, and that is via reducing their HP.
Yeah, that's why I wouldn't say it's, like, quite amazing, but yeah.
well, there's
Oh,
also the invocations, which there's a ton of them. I'm just going to list a couple.
There's more and, like, other stuff, like,
yeah, but a lot
Dragon.
of them mostly just let you either imitate various non-offensive spells or just enhance your Eldritch Blast in some way, which just goes back into the doing HP damage type of deal.
I mean, the
Yeah.
Dark Eldritch Essence invocation's pretty bad because it does enervation damage. It does negative level damage. But yeah, it just augments your Eldritch Blast. 90 d6. No, it only does 9 d6. Nine six-sided dice. Which, don't get me wrong, that is kind of bullshit when you're comparing it to a martial. But what the martial usually kind of has is they get 4 attacks, and if you do it about right, that's 8d6 if you're using, say, something like a two-handed
Yeah,
greatsword.
but here's the thing: those attack rolls are not touch attacks, and each one has decreased accuracy. for each ultra attack, while they just have to make one single touch attack to do all the damage.
I'm just trying to explain why Monty Cook, the giga brain genius who probably designed this thing, or at least helped design it, I don't know who designed the Warlock, but they were probably comparing it to, well, Marshals, if they all hit, can do up to 8d6, and on top of that, they have a guaranteed damage pool based on their strength and the weapon's magic level. So no, it's totally balanced, even though they're only doing touch attacks, and they can do it
I,
infinitely.
I mean, at the grand scheme of things, Warlock is actually pretty balanced as far as 3.5 classes go. It's a bit underpowered compared to most traditional casting
Oh,
classes.
I mean, yeah, by casting
Yeah.
standards, I'm just the thing is though, it's basically just a really fancy version, in my opinion, of a Marshal. So that's why I'm kind of making fun of it. As for how it progresses, it has average base attack, if you're wondering, which is similar to Rogue. That means it gets 3 attacks, and it's only good save as will. All in all, I'd probably rate this on the upper end of decent to the lower end of good. I'd argue good mainly because it gives you use magic device that's 10 skill check. It gives you the base abilities to do decent diplomacy, and it kind of fulfills the purposes of 3 other classes. And last but not least, it's the best martial that's not a martial.
Yeah, I'd say it's good. It's like the best. It's the best archer. It can keep up with the rogue, and even like sometimes and at times do it better than the rogue. Like I'd say it's good.
Judging it as a
Um,
caster, I'd say decent, but I'm comparing it as a martial, which is
well,
pretty darn good.
I say decent because I try to look at things objectively, like from as a whole. Like, oh, I guess it's good for a martial. That's kind of cheating because it's supposed to be a caster. It's kind of not good as a caster, so I'd say decent overall.
Well, it doesn't even act like a caster. It doesn't even get spells. That's kind of
No,
why I
no, no, it's basically a blast caster, a single target blast caster.
I don't know. Uh, I think that's kind of why I put it right on the borderline. If you had to stick me to it, I'd say low end of good. Just because it kind of does what 3 other classes does. Now, admittedly, it's
Yeah,
not
but
as
they're
good
all
as
shit
the.
classes.
Hey, don't shit on Bard.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Like ranger and like rogue were like decent,
Yeah, they're perfectly
classes.
acceptable classes.
So I guess like but it's definitely like high, decent, low, good. I guess we can like
It just barely scrapes in the good for me because I
yeah.
am keeping in mind it's supposed to be a caster, but what it can kind of do without the lack of drawbacks and the fact that yes, it's technically I'm putting in so many air quotes it's not even funny. Technically a caster, it acts a lot more like a martial that has bullshit touch attacks.
I will say it's a better arcane archer than arcane archer, basically.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it
to give
is
you an
like
idea, the
I think
tactical soldier is a better archer than the arcane archer.
I
Yeah,
think like yeah, like I remember we actually said like to told everyone to play a warlock instead. At least I think I did.
Yeah, there's something wrong with you if you want to try to be an arcane archer.
Like seriously, play a warlock.
Oh yeah, there's other invocations that and here's the thing. Warlock got support because it was such a popular class that it kept going and going until it became a regular. Which that doesn't happen often. Up next is the War Mage, which we've already covered. The only change from the Book of Miniatures, which is one of the first autistic analyses we did for the channel. The only big change is that several of its spells were turned into Conjuration, which we mentioned in that video.
yeah. And I agree that some of the spells also had their names changed because they have this weird thing where every once in a while they like retcon the names of spells. You just you reach words like for example, all of the like Force Orb, Fire Orb became Orb of Force and Orb of Fire instead.
Oh yeah, from Jim Jones, Warlock. So then I started blasting. Yeah. So basically, the War Mage. I think I remember saying it was pretty good for the role it wanted to do. It lacks the problems that Beguiler has, and what was it? Dread Necromancer, I believe it was.
Yeah, I think we put it like
Yeah,
decent.
I mean, I think it.
I don't remember the rating, but it was the best of the. I get all of my spells at this point, like I know all of
Well,
them.
it was like it's better at being a sorcerer than how people typically play sorcerer.
So yeah, I vaguely remember giving it good because of that, because it's a very underutilized class. And you can customize it a little bit because you get some advanced learning which allows you to slot in a couple of spells so you're not just pure damage.
Like there's and it does like have some prestige class options that give it a little more utility.
Oh, if you chain it right, you can get the entire cleric spell list because of how they work.
Yeah. Or
That's
like we did, or like that one prestige class in the Book of Exalted Deeds that gives it some non-blast casty stuff too.
Yeah, you can pick up some exalted spells that you otherwise shouldn't be able to. There are three
Yeah.
classes that I would argue very easily can go into what's called the very rare tippy tier. Technically, this is one of them. Technically, but you have to do a specific build, and that's not how we do things here.
Yeah.
It is very bullshit though to be able to do that. Oh yes, I know all of my cleric spell list and a variety of arcane might. Woo! But yeah, War Mage is pretty darn good. And then they actually put a little dungeon in here too. Tarth
Oh.
Morda. But we're not talking about Tarth Morda. It's a little dungeon, a little map, but we ain't talking about it. We're talking about the Woojin instead, which you've probably not heard of unless you've touched Oriental Adventures.
To give an idea, the 3.5 version of Oriental Adventures basically took the setting from Legend of the Five Rings, which Wizards of the Coast uh,
Had the rights to
basically
at the
got the
moment.
yeah, so they just shoehorned it into the Forgotten Realms campaign setting as a continent.
They also did in second edition had their own variant of it, and this was their attempt to kind of bring it forward. Now sometimes it worked fine, and I believe the Woojin's an example of that. Sometimes you got the fucking Ronin. Ah, yes, let
Oh,
me develop
but I
all of
love
the.
being a piece of shit.
Well, here's the best part. You evolve from one piece of shit to a piece of shit that somehow got worse. Because you had to pick the samurai, which was so pigeonholed. Warlock is a cleric who barely passed. No, Warlock is a cleric that went to the ghetto school where they had like 50 kids and one teacher who literally OD'd in the bathroom. Where they literally have metal detectors and secure and like actual armored police officers in the crack den.
Oh, so it's like inner city
No,
Hogwarts.
no, it's more like instead of worshiping a demon prince, you're basically drinking buddies with Derek from Demonic Accounting.
Yeah, your best. You go out. You have a Modelo with a good old Derek the Devil from accounting. As you try to figure out how to, well, not devil, demon, has to be a demon, and you're trying to figure out how to get his goal of meeting his misery quota to the maximum level you can. Or alternatively, you just took a bunch of mushrooms and rolled around in the woods where a bunch of wild nature spirits told you to do things. Either that or Wooly Rupert's talking to you in your dreams about ending the gnome threat once and for all. Either or. So yeah, the Woojin is that's their version of wizard, and it's a very interesting one because they have a very interesting spell list, and they have a mechanic that can kind of be a bit of a pain in the ass. So the way Woojins work are they kind of hide in the wilderness. They're weird little hermits that have a very strong Chinese element vibe to their spells. So they have to be non-lawful. Their hit die is D4, and they have a variety of skills that are very similar to a wizard. In fact, I think it literally is the wizards. Now,
There's some slight differences, but
so in terms of base attack, poor attack, which means half every level, and that just means you get 2 attacks. It's not a martial class. It has bad saves all around except for will, and they have the standard kind of wizard growth rate in terms of spells per day. They get less spells than a sorcerer, but here's the thing, it's based on your book. It's based on your spell book. Now, the way the Woojins work is pretty different, and actually, the reason we're kind of going into bit by bit is arcane casting, and honestly, divine casting to a lesser degree, you have to look at the fiddly bits. There's a lot of spells, there's a lot of mechanics that you have to do.
Yeah, like the thing is that well, martial classes are significantly easier to play but at the same time they honestly aren't anywhere near as good because the complexity is actually what makes casting so bullshit sometimes because they can do all this crazy stuff if you just read the text right.
Like, yeah, you could just pile on damage with a fireball, but why do that when you can just hit the big bad evil guy with confusion and he just starts running away into the wall? Or, hey, if you got the spell, just make them not exist anymore. Just cast destruction and watch as they go away. And that's just very minimal examples. There's other ones that you can do. Like, why not summon a pack of wolves on him? Or strangle him with an octopus? Or just turn into a
Yeah.
bear and punch him in the face? There's so many things.
Yeah. Or you can like you can debuff him to make him or make him or shrink him or like you could do all these debuffs on him.
Oh yeah. If you plot it right, you can legitimately pull a meteor from outer space and slam it down on him at maximum velocity.
Or turn him into a worm.
Yeah, you could baleful polymorph him if the DM's a dummy and forgot to give them things like spell resistances or immunities. You could totally
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, geez. You thoroughly hate that time I turned your boss into an earthworm, didn't you?
Not really. It just meant that I had to go into a second form. No, like that wasn't even bullcrap. Like legitimately, all you did was just skip the first half of the fight. So the opening that you get for a Woojin is you start with a bonus metamagic feat, which metamagic feats are pretty nice. They give you the ability to customize your spells. One of the most powerful of them includes shaping your spells into different forms, which can allow you to turn something that say is like a cube effect into something more like no, it's like a line effect to something else. Like you can change how it works. So you can actually make it so it hits more people. There's also the one where you use type substitution, which is really powerful because why use Fireball when you can use Sound Ball or Ice Ball or Electro Ball? Those are just a couple. You can also heighten it, which makes it harder to like. There's a bunch of really good meta magic. It's always good to pick up a meta magic feat. If you're playing a caster, in my opinion, it's easier to plot out their feats than it is for a martial. Martials kind of need them, unfortunately. Casters, it's more like, what ones do you want today? Maximize is also pretty darn nice because it does max damage. So they get that, and on top of that, they get Watchful Spirit, which you can re-roll initiatives that they made just before they know their place in the initiative order. So if you roll like crap and before the DM can assemble the list, you can just be like, I re-roll. You can only do it once, but it's a really nice ability. Do they have Omnioji? I don't know what that means because I'm not familiar with every element of the Orient that's out there. They do pick up spell secrets, which you have one spell known to them that becomes permanently modified, and that means that you can alter it with enlarged spell, and extend the spell, still spell, or silent spell. If you're wondering what still spell means, so all casting in D&D has a variety of components. There's the items that you need to make it. There is the movement of your hands, or just like your dance routine. That's called somatic. And then there's your voice, which is your vocal. Still spell means you don't have to do the hokey pokey. Silent means you can cast it silently without talking. Both of them are pretty darn nice because there are some DMs actually make a point to try to limit certain abilities by either grappling you so you can't move, or just hitting you with something like silence. It allows you to cast spells with less chance of failure. As for extend, that makes the duration of the spell last longer. That's really nice for summon spells. Really nice because that means they can hang out longer. I forget what enlarge spell does.
A large spell basically, you can double the range of a spell.
Which that's also pretty darn nice, especially for close range spells. So they pick up a spell secret and they actually get up to 5 of those. I'm not the most familiar with Onmyoji. Oh, the Japanese wizards. I think they were mentioned in Falling Blossoms. Dark Sun, I'm not familiar with like every aspect of the world, but yeah, now that you mentioned the Japanese, okay, I now know what you're talking about. So as for what Woojins pick up, the way the Woojin spells are divided into the 5 elemental groups in the Chinese sense: earth, fire, metal, water, and wood. And at 6th level, instead of receiving a spell secret, you become a master of one of those 5 elements. Essentially, it's like picking a specialization in your school. Woojins have to pick one of the 5 elements, which means that you have to pick up spells of that element each time you pick up new spells. Which is a bit annoying because some of the lists are kind of limited at certain points, but on the other hand, it has the same benefits of specialization. You get a +2 competence bonus on saving throws against that element. On top of that, certain spells on the Woojin spells are designated all. That means they belong to all, so it's not limited. Well, like I said, I wasn't familiar with Onmyoji. They're not as I know about Jiangxi because they just hopping vampires and all that. As for spell books, well, it's like normal wizards. You have to study them for a certain amount each day. And there are also taboos. Woojin have taboos. To maintain
Yeah,
supernatural powers, you have to abide by them. If you don't, you basically can't cast any spells that day.
yeah, a lot of them are mostly role playing and based in nature.
It's also based on Shinto religious practices to a degree, and also Hindu Buddhism
I noticed
and
in the
Jainas.
examples one of them is cannot bathe. Um, so you just smell all the time.
That's vegetation. Who needs baths?
But isn't that technically bathing?
I
You're
think
just
that might
using
be an extremist take on Jaina Dharma, where you're not allowed to. You have to be very careful how you bathe because microbes are considered living things.
but
So
like even with prestidigitation, you're just taking a bath with prestidigitation.
You sound like those wizards who keep telling that to the rest of the party. Oh, I don't need to bathe. I have prestidigitation.
basically, cannot eat meat because committing harm to another. Cannot own more than you can carry, which is poverty, asceticism. Bit of a nod to Jaina Dharma and a bit of a nod to the aesthetic movement that's very common in most religious societies. A daily offering, which is more of a Shinto offering. Cannot bathe. That is a tradition, I think, in some Eastern religions. I forget which ones. Cannot cut their hair, which is actually you see an example of that in the Bible. Samson was not allowed to do that because he was dedicated to a specific religious order at the time. Cannot drink alcohol, pretty obvious. Touching a dead body was a no-no in Shintoism. Cannot wear a certain color. That's I think that for some religions. Cannot light a fire. I don't know why that one's a thing. And cannot sit facing a certain direction, which is the element of feng shui, which is the movement of spirit energy. There is a logic
yeah,
to all of them.
yeah. These are just examples. Like
Basically,
it can
pick
be
weird religious like holdbacks you can't do, and that can be one of your taboos. And the way the taboos work is, let's see. Do they explain how many? You have to have one taboo to start with, and you pick an additional taboo every time you learn one of your spell secrets. So you have to, at the end of this, have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 taboos. Kind of religious laws. It's kind of more just personal ethos because you're supposed to be this weird mystical hermit that casts magic. Now, as for what the Wujin spell list is, that's further in the book, but I do remember it has a pretty good variety of spells that you won't otherwise see. Like, it has stuff that you wouldn't have on a normal wizard spell list. It's kind of a mixture of the wizards, druids, and cleric lists. And because of that, it actually has a pretty good selection of abilities. All in all, I'd probably give the Wujin. I'm gonna actually give it a low tier amazing, because it has a pretty flexible spell list. I mean, you can probably talk me down to good because it never does evolve. Actually, yeah, let me correct it. It goes down to good because it has a good spell list, but the Wujin doesn't actually get support like some of the classes do. So it's stuck with what it has.
I will say, similar to the Healer Miniatures Handbook, they actually give a little bit of a guidance of how to expand the Wuchen spell list in the spell compendium.
I'm not knocking it down too high out of amazing. It's like high good still. It's still
Yeah,
a prepared caster with a pretty good spell list.
yeah, it's good.
Only reason I can't give it amazing is it just did not get as much support as it could have.
Yeah, I'd have to say it's good. Like the thing that's at the end of the day is that its spell list is a lot more. It's not anywhere near as versatile as even just the Quarterly Wizard.
Well, that's because again, Wujin spell list never really evolves out of this book. The
Yeah,
way the
but I
way
say like
wizards work.
I'm talking like even compared to Core Only Wizard.
Yeah, because the thing is, casting classes are only as good as how many times they show up in a book. Because each time they are reintroduced in a book, their spell list increases slightly. Wujin only really appears in Complete Arcane and I think Oriental Adventures, and that's it. Bit of a shame,
Well,
but what can you do? And that is all of the base classes. All of those were 1 to 20s. Now we go into the prestige classes, which the way they actually have an interesting little chart. I think I can get away with showing this one. I just want to show it off. Check it out. They actually go into details about each of the different prestige classes, the type that they have. There's the transformational, full caster, unique abilities, the description, and what they actually suggest is the class you're supposed to go into.
Now the thing I mean to take those in particular with a grain of salt because they always often give really bad suggestions.
Or they think
yeah,
everyone can be one of them.
yeah, that's usually a red flag for like a bad class.
I'd say, given how in depth some of these are going to be, we should probably stop at Effigy Master, which is unfortunate because my favorite, because it's so bad, is a little further down. Oh wait, no, my second favorite's actually still in this list, so we get to talk about that piece of shit. But I'm gonna only spoil one thing. The Green Star Adept will be a wild fucking ride.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I love Green Star Adept.
It's
And I love it. I mean, I hate it, but
Well,
it's hilarious.
Green Star Adept is the class. It's like how Gollum is the game. It is the class of all time.
yeah, it's just oh, we won't spoil it.
Yeah, I won't spoil it. It's just that I it's just first finding out about it for the first time was quite a wild ride. So I was just saying that.
So some of you might be familiar. We ain't spoiling it, and don't spoil it if you're aware. It is hilariously bad. So
Yeah,
the first one we go into is the Acolyte of the Skin. So here's the thing. Some people in the world of Oarth or Faerun or Eberron or Kryn, or any of the other settings in this world. They decide that they don't have enough power, being the essential elite since you have casting ability. That's not enough. That is not enough. So what do they come up with? Well, let's rip my own skin off and replace it with even greater power. Yes, that is literally how the Acolyte of the Skin. That's how they actually induct people into this tradition. You literally skin yourself alive and effectively replace your own flesh with demon flesh. It's it's really edgy and kind of dumb. We'll get into it. So the basis of this is it starts with a D8 hit die. Obviously, you're trading off something for this extra HP, and that something is making it a big piece of shit because just looking at the chart, I can already tell you this is going to be a piece of shit class. Spells per day, spells known. It cuts out 5 levels worth of spell progression.
Hmm. I know I always have to bring this up, but I not being able to have level 9 spells no matter what in a 20 level build knocks it down so many tiers for me for like any class that does that.
The
Yeah,
Because
it's a
It's
red
one thing
flag.
if you lose a spell level. A spell level, maybe even 2, you can get away with.
I don't know, because honestly, the difference in power between 8th level and 9th level spells is so vast that I think even losing one spell level is like too much.
I disagree with it, but if you get to the point where you have to lose 9th level at all, you have fucked up. You have fucked up, and this class is already not going to get amazing. It's not going to get good. At best, it might get decent, but it depends on what it gives you. And that's at best, and that's on the lower end. And that's me being nice. Technically, it should go even lower than that, because this is a caster you're destroying. So let's see what we get. You have to do the ritual of bondage. You have to become a bondage clown, unfortunately. Anyway,
Oh,
at each even numbered level, you gain a new spells per day. Whoopity fucking do. Thank you for destroying it. You also get the Were Fiend supernatural ability. The Acolyte of the Skin summons the essence of a fiend
Uh,
and wears it
yeah,
like a second
I'd say
skin.
where as in WEAR, not were fiend like werewolf, but fiend.
That's
like you
so lame.
actually wear the fiend, like as clothes.
Do you like my imp costume? I like
It's
it.
Nice.
basically what it is. It's like one of those shitty like Party City devil costumes.
Do you like? I'm just envisioning Buffalo Bill, but like instead of a woman's suit, it's like a suit made out of the skin. Would you touch me? I'd touch attack me. I'd touch attack me hard. While Goodbye Horses is playing in the fucking background. Uh. So you wear the essence of a fiend. The way that your new skin works, it increases your natural armor bonus by a whopping 1. And you gain a +2 inherent bonus to dex, which that does mean your armor improves a little more than that. But you know what could do the same thing? Enchanted item. There's a variety
Yeah,
of enchanted items that cost a lot less than a willingly surviving being skinned alive.
yeah, it's just not
Keep
worth it,
that in mind.
honestly.
This is the ability you get when you lose your first caster level.
Yeah, come on. Don't you want +2 to your armor class? Isn't it worth it when you could have just, I don't know, used the fucking mage armor like a normal human being would do? That's what I would do.
Yeah,
Oh, hey, Primarch. When I was an edgy teenager, I played an Acolyte of the Skin that was one giant Buffalo Bill reference. That's kind of how you have to play this, I think.
yeah,
It puts the lotion in the basket. It puts the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again. I'm sorry, I can't treat this thing seriously. Oh my god, this art. I have to show this art. It's so dumb. It Look, the acolyte of the skin is so evil and scary, he's traumatized this orc barbarian. In reality, that orc barbarian would fucking destroy him.
Yeah, but he has glowing red eyes.
Oh no!
That means, you know.
So here are some of the stuff you get out of this. You get flame resistant at 2nd level. That means
Oh,
that your skin binds
you,
tighter.
you forgot that you get poison as a spell-like ability.
Oh, I forgot about poison once per day, like an 8th level caster. Do you know how good poison is as a spell?
Oh, yes, and at 5th level, you can use it 2 times per day.
Whoopity do. Now, again,
Ooh.
poison's not like the shittiest thing in the world, but really, this is what you're sacrificing spell casting
Yeah,
for?
there's, you know.
You're losing higher level spell slots to basically cast a 4th level spell twice per day.
Yeah.
Also, keep in mind that poisons in general in D&D, not that good. You have
I
to,
can point out that poisons and diseases are more useful in the hands of the DM than the players.
even then, if the player's using them, you basically have to have a DM that's willing to allow them to either create their own poisons and then kind of like balance it, or they have to have a wider poison list or disease list, let's be fair. They get flame resistance though. Don't you want energy resistance 10 fire?
No.
Come on, it's so powerful. You could take a fireball to the face, just like every monster after 3rd fucking level. I'm joking, but fire resistance is like one of the most common things you're gonna run into. But you could get fiendish glare. Once a day, you could stare
Ooh.
at someone, and they get scared. It just shakens
Ooh.
them, which is the shit. Wait a
No,
minute.
fear is
Wait a
like
minute. That's a barbarian. A barbarian with a fear effect. Are you fucking with me?
fear is like baby's first status
Yeah, to give it, yeah,
Barbarians laugh at it. Literally, rage makes them immune to it. What the fuck?
to give it an idea, fear is such an early game stats effect that remove fear is a level 1 spell on most caster spell lists that have it.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
It's a barbarian. Like in the art, he's doing it to a fucking barbarian. That's the thing that, like, if it was any other class, it'd still be dumb. But, ugh. But they can also become. They have to do a will save or be stunned for the duration of the stun effect. It depends on their hit points. And it's completely worthless if they have over 151. So it gets
Yeah.
shittier the longer you're in this level. Oh, it's also mind affecting, which is why the barbarian in that piece of shit art I showed you shouldn't be fear at all. Barbarians are immune to mind affecting when they're raging. Or at least they get a massive boost to resisting it. Fucking stupid.
Seriously, what barbarian would be raging at this thing?
But skin
Like,
adaptation. By 5th level, your skin has grown comfortable together, as if they've never been separate. The increase to natural armor improves to a whopping +2, and you get a bonus constitution.
ooh.
You also get dark vision up to 120 feet. Does it actually give you dark vision to begin? Yes, it does. Okay. That's not worth it. I just had to make sure they did give it to you in the first place.
By this point, you've lost 3 caster levels, which means unless you played a prepared caster beforehand, you just lost 9th level spells.
Don't worry. Don't worry. We'll make it up to you. We'll make it up to you. You get cold resistance at 6th level. Minus
Oh
10 to
boy.
ice attack. And you get to keep that. If you get out now, oh wait, we can't. We have to finish this piece of shit class. We have to finish this piece of shit class because that is how autistic analysis works. You're not taking little dips. You're not doing like little. Oh, this class is great if you do the first 4 level. No, we ain't doing that. You
We're
have to
going
look
all
at
the
the
way
whole thing.
Yeah, we're going all the way to the capstone.
If it even has a capstone.
I think it does.
It does get one. It's called Fiendish Symbiosis, but I want to look at the other stuff. Glare of the Pit. You get to fire beams from your eyes once a day, and it's a ranged touch attack to hit, and it does 8d6 points of fire damage. It can be aimed at 2 different targets within range. That's like,
Wow, that's almost like having a caster level like 9 Scorching Ray.
oh, I did forget to enter into this. Besides skinning yourself alive, you have to have knowledge of the plane 6 ranks. I apologize. There's requirements through all prestige classes. We just kind of forgot about it because I mean, as soon as we saw the table, that kind of like instantly destroyed our brain because this is a
Yes.
bad class. So requirements, the way they work, you have to have these to even enter the class. So you have to not be good because you're literally consulting with demons to skin yourself alive, like like all giga-brained people. You need knowledge to plane 6 ranks, so you have to contact the demon to become Buffalo Bill. You have to have a caster level of 5th level. So you've just gotten 3rd level spells, and you're like, you know what I want to do? I want to destroy my ability to cast even better. You must have made peaceful contact with a summoned evil outsider, and then you have to skin yourself alive. In terms of requirement, pretty much any arcane caster can do it. But
Why?
by 6th level, you've basically fucked yourself as a sorcerer. And by 7th level, you fucked yourself as a wizard, because Glare of the Pit sacrifices your 9th level. Come on, don't you want 8d6 when you could have just, oh, I don't know, used any other spell in 9th level instead?
You don't understand. It's fire damage, the most common and easily resisted element.
The rank 1 Adept of the Skin. Zzz. Yeah? But come on, you also can summon a fiend. You could draw on another power if the skin's demonic once per day. You could summon a babao, or if it's devilish, you could summon a chain devil.
Geez, if only there was a spell line that was all about summoning mostly celestial or fiendish creatures and outsiders.
Yeah.
If only I could have thought to pick up that spell. When in reality, all I did was pick up. What type of spells do you think that this person would have picked if they chose this? Like, is it just pure blast casting, or is it just I picked no damaging spells at all, and they're all like weird support ones?
Does it really matter at this point?
I'm trying to envision where Summon Fiend is seen as an amazing ability. Like, I'm just trying to imagine because Chain Devils aren't even that high ranked, actually. Like, like, Chain Devils are nothing to fuck with when you run into them initially, but at this point, any party worth of shit could smack them down. But at level 10, the capstone, the skin and acolyte become one, and only final death can separate them. You become an outsider, which actually fucks you because native outsiders are screwed.
Oh no, no, it says unlike other outsiders, alcohol can be raised or resurrected.
Aw, pussy. Pussy.
Oh.
That's the only benefit. Basically, if you're wondering, outsider as a template's not bad. You pick up a couple of you pick up damage reduction, and you also pick up another resistance at that point. It's honestly not a horrible capstone. The problem is this entire class is dog shit.
Yeah, it's garbage.
Long live the new flesh. No, long dead the old flesh. You
To
lose
give an
5.
idea, at some point in 3.5, they added higher level spells that basically let you temporarily become a good or evil outsider.
So yeah, this was made obsolete just from that. On top of that, you sacrifice 9th level spells, and you really cripple your 8th level spell output as well.
Yeah.
And what do you get out of it? The ability to summon monsters from the summon monsters to summon fiend. No, you get the ability to summon fiends when you can just summon certain monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
those same fiends can be summoned with summon monsters.
well, you don't understand. You can shoot laser beams from your eyes that do worse damage than the fireball by this point. Don't you want to do worse damage than a fucking fireball? I have to give this. This is an amazing. No, this is
No, this
garbage.
that
This is garbage.
garbage.
This is
Yeah.
garbage. I actually forgot how bad this was. This wasn't the
Yeah.
one I was looking forward to. That's coming up next. That's coming up after the next one. So the up next is the Alienist, which these people are the Cthulhu worshippers. Straight up, what happens are they're a flavor of Warlock where they deal with eldritch abominations.
Well, it's not even warlock. It could be any type of caster, even divine.
Yeah, so
And,
basically
and
you make contact with Cthulhu or
it's look,
Azathoth.
and I see a green flag with this one. You get all your you don't lose any spells.
Okay,
Yeah.
that already at worst just makes it like a soft form of garbage. It depends on what it like. Literally, it doesn't do any damage, so I can't like at worst.
Usually, but I consider that a green flag.
No, it's a
Uh,
green flag. Like at the worst, it could probably be is playable
Yeah,
because it would require its special abilities to somehow cripple you beyond that.
yeah,
yeah, I'd point out that this is a good class because if you look at it, it's mostly based around Minion Mancy. So
Okay,
you need
so
augment summoning and the ability to cast at least one summoning spell of third level or higher.
let's just look at the cluster. So it has a D4 hit die, poor base attack. Most of these will have poor base attack and low hit die. They're all based on arcane casters. Good will saves, and they have a variety of abilities like summon alien. You can summon an alien. So the way that alienists, if you summon monster to summon a celestial or fiendish creature, you instead summon a pseudo-natural version of that creature. For example, by casting Summon Monster 4, she could summon a pseudo-natural direwolf. This adds the pseudo-natural template which is in this book to the summon creature. I don't have the pseudo-natural creature on hand. Do you happen to know what
yeah,
that template's like? Because I've never seen it.
Yeah, the pseudo-natural template, it basically isn't like bad at all. Like it basically the creature turns to outsider, and they can once per day cast True Strike as a spell-like ability for a +20 bonus to a single attack roll. They also gain resistance to acid electricity. Uh, they gain damage reduction, spell resistance, and their stats are the same, except for that if their intelligence is less than 3, it becomes 3, which means that you can give them more complex like things if you like enter this as like a druid or something.
yeah. And I'm looking at over the requirements, and they're pretty reasonable. Like to enter this.
So before we look into the requirements, I like the art they give you. Just it really tells you all you need to know about what you're getting into. Just standing before this old menhir, I think they're called. You have the alienist alongside Bloody Knife and her summoned direwolf here. Look at that tentacled dog. It's so I can't call it cute. It's an abomination in a good way.
Yeah,
So let's look at the requirements. So to become that, you have to not be lawful. You need knowledge of the plane's 8 ranks, which so a little higher than the acolyte of the
Well,
skin.
to be fair, that means you have to be at least level 5, which also you would probably need in order to get a third level summoning spell.
Yeah, you need to summon a spell of 3rd level or higher. You need augment summoning, so you want to have that as a feat. You also have to have made peaceful contact with an alienist or a pseudo-natural creature. So yeah, summon alien is pretty good. It allows you to apply templates to your monsters, which are pretty darn strong. They're not. It's not say as strong as say Ice Beast or Dust Form creature, but it's up there. they also get familiar abilities. Levels of alienist stack with any levels of class that provides access to a familiar. So your familiar still improves as well. You also pick up Metamagic Secret. An alienist listens to the secret voices whispering from beyond time and profits from it. At 3rd and 7th level, they can choose any metamagic feat as a bonus one.
Well, I should
Which,
point out there also is the alien blessing they get before,
oh yes,
where
Alien
they
Blessing. They gain a +1 insight bonus on all saving throws. You permanently lose 2 points of wisdom, though. Don't worry, it is not a wisdom-based caster.
Yes.
Instead, they use the spellcasting that you'd be using beforehand. So you'd be using, for this, intelligence or charisma. So don't worry, it's not crippling you. Mad Certainty. At level 4, an alienist's Mad Certainty and the power of the entities beyond the reach of normal space and time give them an unnatural fortitude, granting them an additional 3 hit points. The problem is, this also drives them a bit batty. You take a -4 penalty on all bluff, diplomacy, and handle animal checks. At least when dealing with the normal. Mad Certainty is not that good of an ability. It basically is like taking a crappier version of that one feat that just gives you 3 hit points. It's not
yeah.
good toughness. It's
But
like a bad
honestly,
toughness.
if they're going to make a mini magic class that doesn't lose any caster levels, they'd probably have to put stuff like this in order to be anything resembling balanced.
Oh yeah, like it's not a good ability, especially you get, but it's just something you get. At 5th level, your familiar degenerates into a
Yeah.
yeah. At each level you take as an alienist, your familiar turns more and more into a gribble. So yeah, by that point at 5th level, they become full gribble, and they get their full. Your familiar now has the pseudo normal feat template, which actually makes them somewhat tougher.
Yeah.
At 6th level, the alienist gains an extra spell slot at their highest spell level, and this slot can only be used to summon monsters. So that's really goddamn useful.
But also, as an alias becomes able to learn higher level spells, the extra slot migrates up to the new highest level.
Still, a free slot with your highest summon monster is pretty good.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
That's really good. At 8th level, you also pick up Insane Certainty. So you become even crazier. You gain an additional 3 hit points, so you have another example of toughness. But now, you're at -10 to all bluff, diplomacy, and handle animal checks because you're too busy going. At 9th level, you gain Perpetual Youth. Yeah, that thing that monks get at like level 20, yeah, you just pick it up at level 9. It's no big deal. You just talk with Cthulhu, bam, he fixes it for you. You don't take any penalties from aging. You cannot be magically aged. Ability score bonuses from aging still accrue though, but no and any penalties you had beforehand still take place. But
Well,
other than that,
I need to bring up something else who might not know. When it comes to magical agent abilities, the Timeless Body ability in general is basically a leftover from AD&D. Between
yes,
3.0 and 3.5,
there's like
there
one
is
monster.
only there's only a single magical agent effect at all, and is exclusive to a 3.0 thick level monster
Yeah, there's
that
one
agents you
monster that can hit
1d4
you.
years with a beam.
Yeah, there's one monster that still hits you. So Timeless Body is actually pretty meh. It's just a nice little fluff feature. Although, since it does remind you, as a DM, it might not be the end of the world if you don't want to spam it, but every now and again, if you have a powerful monster, you might want to give it some abilities to eat time. Just to at least make stuff like this apply. And it's just an interesting way to like make things a little more dangerous. Again, you don't want to spam it because something like 2D 4 years, if say you used it on the Diopsid, he'd just drop dead. Because 2D 4 years, that's like a third of his lifespan.
Oh no.
Oof.
Oh, I can't wait to live to the ripe old age of somewhere between 21 and 28 years old.
Yeah. And at level 10, the alienist, because of long associate. Oh wait, before I continue, timeless body. The alienist is stolen away by the horrible creatures that they made their pact with when their time is up, and they are never seen again. But at 10th level, your association turns you into a Gribbly. You turn into a pseudo-normal outsider. You gain damage reduction 10 to anything but magic, and resistance to electrical and acid damage, up to 10. You go through minor physical changes, usually developing weird little tentacles. You basically become Wilbur Whately from the Dunwich Horror. You gain tentacles, maybe a hoof, eyes in places they shouldn't belong, maybe a second mouth somewhere. You look like a Cronenberg.
Yeah.
So at that point, you kind of have to use things like robes or hoods. But the alien growth that you have is not under your control fully and just kind of randomly moves or does things. And on top of that, yeah, people who see this to you, you intimidate them. And your alien cultist buddies are like, you're the coolest thing ever. Because you get a +2 bonus on all charisma-based skills with them. But with anyone else, it's a +2 bonus on intimidate, because why do you have a third eye growing out of your chest or
Oh
shoulder?
boy, I'm going to go on a bender with this mind flayer. He thinks I'm a cool dude.
I'm just now envisioning like the all crazy party where it's just you get an alienist, a mind flayer, a defective mind flayer. Because if you're wondering, the only types of mind flayer you'll find that are not of this specific alignment, they're all supposed to be, they are actually defective and are supposed to be destroyed and consumed for parts. Like legitimately in their society, they are seen as defective. It's like Modrons, and they're hunted down and essentially ripped apart into sustenance for the larvae. But not their minds, because they don't want because their minds are seen as corruptive. They don't want them to be touched. Just a fun little fact. So, oh yeah, the alienist. I would say this was actually a pretty good. I'm gonna say this is a pretty good prestige class.
Good, yeah.
Yeah,
It's got
I will say it's good, but I mean mostly because there are downsides to stuff. But at the same time, you aren't really losing much if you enter as like a sorcerer who doesn't care about being a people person.
The only the biggest downside I'd probably say is just it's this type of prestige class is very tempting for very disruptive players sometimes.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
it is disruptive player fodder. Can you imagine the type of person that would play a sorcerer in the most obnoxious way
like
possible, and
like
then they pick
Derek.
this?
Hey Derek.
I wouldn't be surprised if Derek actually does play Alienist quite a bit.
Well, he doesn't like 3.5, remember?
Oh yeah, too many numbers, too hard, not good for caveman brain.
Yeah.
He likes 5e, which is basically the same fucking thing though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's simplified in some respects, like you can't go over certain stats, skills are limited, but you know, the same core mechanics are there. It's just less books to read. Although the books you're getting now are pretty fucking bad. It's a shame too, because the initial book wasn't that bad. It has problems, like all versions of D&D have problems, which is why there's a beautiful solution called "Don't play D&D if you get sick of D&D." Like if you get sick of it, if you're not, it's perfectly fine to keep playing your flavor of D&D. Or if you get sick of one version of D&D, you can always try a new version. It's kind of beautiful. Just I would recommend try to get out of playing 5e. Maybe try a different version for anyone else that's because that's like a big problem is a lot of players just refuse to get out of 5e. When it's actually not that scary. You just start with maybe an earlier version or like Pathfinder 2.0. Both of them are not too different. Ah, the Argent Savant. This one, I think this is the Big B specialist. I think this is the
Yep.
one. This is the one that specializes in, because there's an entire spell list called Big B's whatever hand.
Uh, I had a D&D group where we basically just summarize all the spells as Big B's stupid hand.
Because there's a variety, there's a several spells that basically are Big B's hand of a variety of things. Like there's Big B's helping hand. Bigby's, I think, pimp hand. I mean,
Big
that's
B's
not what it's
middle
called,
Big
but
B's
finger.
expressive digit.
Big B's wiggly. No, Big B's busy hands. Look at these busy hands. So the
Big
Argent
B.
Savant, of all the energies summoned or shaped by magic, force. Oh, they're force specialists. They specialize in
Yeah.
force magic. So if you're wondering, there's a variety of elements. The most common of them that you're going to run into are fire spells, acid dealing spells, which are usually associated, I believe, with wind. No, I think electrical
Well,
is
electricity
associated
is
with wind.
usually associated with wind. Acid is usually associated with earth.
So acid's associated with earth, electrical is associated with wind, and ice is associated with water. And then there's sonic, which is kind of your neutral element. This is the one that's usually not resisted by much. There's other ones though, and force is the one that basically bypasses everything, except there is one lineage of dragons that actually resists force. But if
Yeah,
you're
but
fighting that, you basically have signed your own death warrant anyway.
yeah, like even hatchlings of, well, they're called force strikes. Even the hatchling would give a level 20 party very large headache and probably would kill them all horribly.
And here's the thing: if you fought that hatchling and killed it, you just pissed off mommy and daddy.
Yeah.
You're you're
Yeah.
you're dead. You're dead.
You're
Now, as for Argent Savants, since they spec in Force, they usually use evocation magic or abjuration magic. Basically, stuff that allows you to use Force at all. So the requirements to become an Argent Savant is you need Knowledge Arcana 6 ranks and you need a Spellcraft of 12. You have to cast at least 5 spells with the Force descriptor, and at least one of them has to be 5th level or higher, since this is a class you can't enter in until you're pretty far along. So it's not hard. You just have to wait a while if you're going to try to play this class. So what do you get out of this? So you lose a spellcasting level, which does ding it a bit. It's not a death
yeah.
knell for me, but it does ding it a bit.
Yeah. Well, it's a yellow flag.
Again, rule of
Ugh.
thumb: if you have to lose more than, I'd say, 2 spell slots, you're screwed.
Like if it's every
I actually
other
think 3 is good because that's the one where you're pretty much guaranteed to
Fair.
lose.
like like if it's like every other level, it's like, yeah, no.
So this is not a good sign, but it's not the end of the world. Let's see.
Yeah, yellow flag.
So what you get in exchange for this is Force Specialization. Argent Savants gain a +2 competence bonus on attack rolls made with their Force spells. They also add a +1 bonus to each die of damage dealt by the spells they cast with the Force descriptor. If the Force spell doesn't deal damage expressed by dice, they add only a +1 bonus to damage dealt. That's fucking bad. Don't get me wrong, because you get extra die for each time, that means that's a +1 damage to each die associated with it, but that's still pretty fucking bad. That is not worth losing a spell level, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But that's just the first level. Let's continue. Force Armor. At second level and higher, an Argent Savant gains more benefit from defensive spells than other characters. If they cast a Force spell that provides armor bonus or a shield bonus to armor class, it increases the spell's normal armor bonus by 2. For example, Mage Armor usually ups it by 4. It'll up it by 6. Not bad, but still, I wouldn't say worth the -1 spell slot or arcane spellcasting class ability. Let's continue. Enduring Force. Force spells cast by level 3 or higher linger longer than normal. It's essentially an extend spell. It's an extend spell. In addition, the DC required to counter or dispel it increases by 4, so harder to dispel. Not really that great, but not horrible.
It's better than you think. Like, to give you an idea, it gives a lot more leg to both mage armor and shield.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the defensive boosts. Yeah, it's pretty good on that. it might be. I think it's taking itself just out of garbage at this point. Ablate
Yeah.
Force. Due to improved understanding of magic force, at level 4, they have the ability to prevent force damage to themselves. They subtract their class level from damage. Does it mean the class level of Argent Servant, or does it mean all of it?
When they say class level, they mean their current class level.
Okay.
Otherwise, they would say character level.
A force spell producing multiple attacks, such as Magic Missile, is considered a single attack for this purpose, which is kind of crap, but whatever. The fact that you gain force resistance is quite impressive, though.
Yeah, so this is like that force dragons are usually the only ones that can do that.
Okay, then. So, last but not least, their capstone is Unbind Force. You can unweave a force spell or effect and liberate its magical energy. When if you succeed on dispelling it, the force effect is unbound. It immediately dispels the effect and deals 1d6 points of force damage per level of the dispelled spell to all creatures and objects within 10 feet of it.
I've heard that
So,
it also affects spells that are normally immune to dispel magic, such as Wall of Force.
yeah, this allows you to dismantle Wall of Force, which is one of the hardest things to get around unless you use things like dimensional teleporting. This allows
Yeah.
them to undo this. And it turns mage armor into a bomb in their hands.
I will say that honestly, the extra damage per die for force damage is really, really hard to increase because nothing except for force dragons resist it.
So,
So it really,
here's my thinking, right? If this was just the one level class, I would say that it wasn't worth it if you just take the one level dip. I would, however, say once you get the force armor bonus, it takes it out of garbage. And I'm going to be real with you. The capstone really does take it all the way into decent, I'd say. Not quite good, but almost. And my reasoning is you lose some spell slots, but in exchange, actually, no, I'm correcting myself. Just barely in good, and here's why. Unbinding Force allows you to essentially turn a person's spells against them and weaponize them. Like, if you're dealing with a dude who stacks on mage armor, congratulations, you just turned it into an explosive device. And on top of that, you fry their armor.
yeah, to give you an idea, force spells are not only usually
They're very
like,
hard to dismantle, and this guy can do it. Sorry about that.
but like, try to think of force is basically the ultimate element in some ways, as in like hard only like one creature actually resists it. But in return, there are very few spells and orders, and their damage spells tend to usually use smaller dice than ones of other elements. Try to
Because
balance
it's
it out.
almost impossible to bypass. And a +1, because it applies to all damage dice, it does. I'm only kind of poo-pooing it because in exchange it's not equal. But once you get to the fact that your armor's better and it lasts twice as long, or Walls of Force last twice as long, it
I
makes it
mean, I
up.
also like
Like,
the idea of adding 10 extra damage to a fully powered orb of force. Sounds fun.
there's also Mordenkainen's
Yeah.
Sword, which is another spell that applies to.
Yeah.
So overall, it's very specialized. And at first, you think it's not quite worth it, but each level, it's an interesting prestige class because each level begins to really make up what you lose. Like, it actually feels. This is probably the best example of sacrificing a spell slot I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
Because
I
it
I
starts
agree.
off like it's a big cost, but each level actually gives you something to represent this is why you cost yourself that initial spell research. Like, it starts off by improving things like Orb of Force or Mordenkainen's Sword or Magic Missile, which I wouldn't say completely overdoes it. It's nice, but then your mage armor gets better. Then everything gets better. And then last but not least, oh yeah, I can resist force attacks like a force dragon. Oh, you used Wall of Force. Watch this. Has it explode doing what is that, 5d6 worth of force damage to
Yeah,
everything around him?
yeah, that might seem like much, but I should point out that force damage, except it's rare and it very rarely comes in AoE form.
Yeah, and this does. So that's why initially I was thinking decent, but then I'm like, wait a minute. No, that's actually really good.
Yeah.
Argent Savant gets a good for me.
Yep,
Pretty solid good. It's not an amazing thing, but
yep.
it's really
The
cool.
biggest thing to get is that you need a pretty specific build and you need to consciously pick a nice toolkit to take the maximum advantage of it.
Make sure you select all of the force spells you can remember, and also add in a few support spells to go with it, because you can't just rely purely on force.
Right.
But no,
I
this is
mean,
good.
you can sometimes if you know what you're doing, but if you don't, might as well grab other stuff.
No, this is genuinely a good class. I'm actually pleasantly surprised.
Yeah,
I
me
think I
too.
remember giving it decent way back when I first read it, but no, it's better than I remember.
Right.
Oh no, it's my second least favorite class in this book. Well, actually no, it's my least favorite by far. Because here's the thing, Green Star Adept, we're not going to talk about it in this episode. That's a funny class. This just sucks.
What about Seeker of the Song?
Okay, correction, this is still the second worst class in the book in terms of being entertaining.
Yeah, because I remember,
Oh
like,
fuck.
at the end of Book of Exalted Deeds, you were referencing Seeker of the Song and how that is.
It is one of the it is the worst bard class you could probably pick.
Oh, yeah.
It makes Troubadour of the Stars look good. Anyway, Blood Magus. This is so bad I have to read the whole fucking thing too. Death is the ultimate risk that spellcasters, like all adventurers, must contend with. Some are cut down before they have a chance at true glory. Others find true peace only in the afterlife. And others are brought back from death by companions with the powerful magical resources to perform such a miracle. For a rare few, such as arcanists, this trip to the great beyond and back brings new enlightenment, a comprehension of the body and its individual parts that transcends the meaning of those who have not experienced death and return to tell the tale. I think that's pretty. I think that's a really shitty excuse for why this class was made, but okay, let's continue. These newly raised spellcasters say that the first sound they hear upon returning to life was the pulse of life-giving blood in their veins. To these fortunate few, the flow of blood through their veins is sweet music, the sound of life. They could okay, it's getting on in the tooth, but basically, yeah. So let's get into the requirements because this is fucking horrible.
Yeah,
You have to die to become
like,
one of
you
these.
die as a caster, you fucked up.
To give an idea, so if you enter it, if you're too low of a level, you're gonna lose that level. Like to give an idea, like how do you even enter this class early without losing a level at the end of the day?
You have to basically plot exactly where you have. You can't even plan. You can't plan a death in an adventure. You have to
It,
essentially go. Okay, now is the time, and you coup de grace yourself with your own knife.
You commit sedition.
a good thing I happened to die immediately after we found this gold-filled tomb of Lord Tootin Putin.
Like you have to find a thing that'll bring you back, and then as soon as you go, I'm just envisioning like you're going on this adventure, you're going to the Great Pyramids. It's dangerous as hell. You've actually had to deal with a mummy. That was really nasty. One of your party members died, and you actually hear the wizard player sigh because it wasn't them. And then you find the resurrection potion. You're about to use it on your dead party member friend. And he's like, "No, wait." And then he proceeds to do a backflip down a cliff to intentionally land on his neck so he can steal the life-bringing potion to become a fucking blood magus.
Best of all, they're giving it his house, so if they want to continue who not having to go to Jimmy's mom's place, they gotta let him have the potion now.
Just I like you have to drop dead as a character. It's already bad enough. But
Yeah.
by the way, the creator of this class had to write an adaptation. A twist on the Blood Magus as presented here would be to tie the class to some deity or entity. Whenever they work their blood magic, they also give blood sacrifice to the deity mentioned.
Ooh, edgy.
That's why Imset was completely right when he said blood for the blood god. Also, crawling my skin, this pain will never go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to become a blood magus, you have to be anything but lawful good. You have to have concentration of 4 ranks. And this is another thing. You have to waste your fucking feats on great fortitude and toughness.
Oh boy, just what I always wanted for an arcane caster.
And you can't game it by starting as a martial because you have to be an arcane caster 5th level. No, no, no. You have to be able to cast up to 5th level,
Well, it's going to be technical. You got to
3rd
be
level
6th
spells.
level, so that way when you die, you'll still be 5th level, but you still pre-qualify for the class.
You have to do a back. No, no, no. You can't be a fighter. You can't be cheeky. And then you have to kill yourself because there's no way in hell that the DM's going to be able to plot out a fight specifically designed to kill you at that level. At least not without some extra casualties. So let's go into the Blood Magus. It's
Well, I remember the biggest thing of all is that if you die at that level, if you're so stubborn and want to be brought back to life, there is how much of a massive side quest you have to do to bring a character back at level freaking 5.
speed run Blood Magus any percent. Yeah, you have to go on like some amazingly horrible journey. By the way, the longer that journey takes, the harder it is to bring it back anyway.
We also have to ask like the Druid to constantly cast gentle repose on your corpse because you refuse to roll up a new character. You gotta be a blood magus. You have to. You gotta.
I already hate this.
Yeah.
I already hate this so much. I fucking hate this. We haven't even gotten into the abilities. That's how fucking awful this is.
You spent the next 3 sessions just giving snarky commentary and remembering the Druid player to cast his spell for a couple hours.
It's like 3. It takes you like 3 months to get to the revival pit. So here's what you get. They have proficiency with any weapon or armor. Spells per day, spells known at each level except 5th and 10th level. So you're losing 2 slots, which.
Oh
Ooh,
no.
hoo. I'm already liking where this is going. That's a strong yellow flag. It's almost a red. If it lost 1 more spell, it would have been. That's an
Yeah.
orange flag.
I mean, it's. It's all. I mean, we had
I
blood
mean,
red
I think you
flag.
already reached that point just with the requirements.
Just,
I mean, we had blood red flag with the requirements.
oh yeah, we entered into the black flag because no quarter, you have to die,
2 shitty feats and you have to die after taking those 2 shitty feats.
and you lose 2 spell levels. Come on, this better be the best class of all time. It's not going to be. I'm spoiling it right now. It's not going to be. This class, if you're wondering, when I first read Complete Arcane, I wasn't like full on screaming by the end of it, but I was like, what the fuck is this? I actually had to take a break because it's so bad. So, all right, here we go. You gain a arcane spell. He does not, however, gain any benefits to character of that class if you had more than 1 arcane spell casting. Blah blah blah. Blood component. A blood magus can substitute a drop of his own blood for a spell's material component.
So
You
you have to
cut
slit your
yourself.
wrist.
You fucking cut yourself to cast magic.
Literally, like crawling in my crawl. Like you literally have to slit your wrist.
You cut yourself to cast your spell. Oh god, I remembered that's something you had to do, but I just rephrasing it as what you actually do just makes it so much more contemptible. So, you cut yourself to draw the requisite blood as a free action. It deals 1 point of damage to you, but it raises the spell's caster level by 1. Damage reduction, if the character has any, doesn't apply because you cut yourself as hard as you can on purpose. If the
Yeah.
spell has a costly material component, greater than 1 gold piece, that still has to be provided. So, this is basically a shittier version of eschew materials. Because that's a metamagic feat that actually is pretty darn useful. for at least some of the lower level spells. It just allows you to cast them freely. You don't have to worry about
Wait,
spell
I can't
components.
I can't I can't bleed myself out
Like I'm just
to
envisioning the asshole
like
blood
get
magus.
to like get a to like get a so I can like instead of like affording like all these like gems and stuff, I could just I,
I think we have to go on another 3 session quest to raise you again.
You still here's the thing though, you still have to use like the 100 gold gem thing. Like
Yeah.
if it costs like 50 gold, like this incense stick costs 50 gold, you still have to do it. You just cut yourself for the other shit. So I'm just envisioning like this asshole who's disrailed this quest by becoming a blood magus. Like, you got to bring my corpse to this pyramid. He cuts himself to, and then you just see the other like sorcerer look contemptuously because he's like, "Why didn't you just use the shoe materials?" Same level,
he went
still has the same ability.
he went down the road instead of across the street.
I'm just envisioning like the sorcerer tagging along with this shit show, going, "Why do that when he can just do what I've done? He has a shoe of materials. He has heightened spell. Does the same fucking thing. Does the same fucking thing." And if it's a female blood magus, free materials every month. Oh, that's horrible.
That's awful. I hate you. Why did you say that?
That is disgusting.
Oh, by the way, the blood magus has a D6 hit die to represent all of the times they have to cut. I hate this. This is all just the first level, by the way. Durable casting. You have the ability to concentrate on casting spells and maintaining them despite taking damage. For purposes of making a concentration check to cast, concentrate or direct a spell that might be distracted by damage, you subtract the level from any hit point damage dealt by an attack. Blah, blah, blah. This is so shittily written. Basically, you subtract your Blood Magus level. Actually, is it Blood Magus or character level?
In
Blood Magus
resisting
level.
level, they mean blood biggest level.
So, like at level 1, you subtract 1 point of damage from the amount you got hit. Like if you got hit with a knife for like 3 damage, you now have to make a DC 2 check. I okay. If you're in melee combat and getting hit as a mage, you fucked up. I have to agree, Jim. This is a truly exceptional class for the most exceptional of individuals. God, this class would get kicked out of the Marine Corps.
I can think about this plus is that a lot of these abilities require you to be the most retarded arcane caster ever and constantly be within striking distance of the opponent.
Oh, but when a Blood Magus gets down to 0 HP, you auto-stabilize. Come on.
Wow,
Isn't
y-
it
you
worth
know,
it?
if you're played smart, that ability should never have to ever activate.
At second level, you get Scarification. You can inscribe spells on your own skin for later use using your
Oh
knife. I,
god.
I fuck. Oh god. I'm
Yeah,
so.
you get scribe scroll, but you use your skin.
This is so shit. So you effectively gain the scribe scroll feat using an alternative medium. All of the expenses still apply, by the way, which still makes him more garbage than Acolyte of the Flesh, which does ignore that. Remember that? Acolyte of the Flesh ignored that. It's worse than
You know
Acolyte
a
of the
spell that does this
Flesh.
whole thing a lot better? Rune Scarred Berserker.
This is not an NPC class. This doesn't deserve to even be associated with that.
Yeah.
Mm. So all of the expenses. Likewise, reading a scar follows the same rule as reading a scroll, but only a blood magus can decipher his own scars. Oh God. Once one's skin leaves a limited amount of room to easily inscribe and read magical scars, so you can only have 6 of these scars at any one time. At 3rd level, you pick up Death Knell once per day.
Death Knell. Death Knell is a shitty spell, and being able to use it once per day as a spell-like ability.
Explain what Death Knell is, because there's a lot of spells and they may not be familiar. I'm not. It's okay. Don't feel bad if you
Yeah.
don't know it either. It's so bad. I think I've looked at Death Knell like 5 times and I've forgotten it every time I've looked at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty. Basically, Death Knell, you touch a living creature that has -1 or fewer hit points. And if they fail the saving throw, it dies, and you gain 1d8 temporary hit points in return, and a +2 bonus to strength.
No wonder I kept forgetting that spell exists. What the fuck?
Yeah, they literally like most DMs consider by the time they reach that point, might as well just be dead. So I don't think anyone's gonna like try to like
Do
help
you
them
just
once
do
they
you
reach that.
just keep a bunch of stabilized -2 hit point chickens on hand just to like strangle them for that effect? I don't know how to use death. Like, you can't really use death knell. It's so situational unless you plot like the infinite bag of near dead chickens holding.
Oh, I should point out that it is also you have to do a melee touch.
That's why you need the infinite
What?
bag of nearly dead chickens. That's the only way this is gonna work.
Yeah.
I hate this.
Yeah.
This class actually got worse from the last time I've read this. I don't know how that's possible.
Well, in return, your caster level goes up by 1, and that lasts for 10 minutes per hit die of the creature that
Listen,
died. But good luck getting anything of decent hit die, like in the perfect 10 HP range of -1 to -9.
That's why you gotta farm the chickens.
could this class actually be True Namer?
We don't know yet. We don't know yet. Blood Magus Chicken Farmer. Yeah. So, Blood Drought. At 4th level, Blood Magus learns how to store spells of up to 3rd level in their own blood like a fucking potion. These are basically crappier versions of meta magic feats you can pick up. Once brewed, the blood draught remains in circulation within a Magus's body. The maximum number of draughts they can store at one time is equal to their blood Magus level plus his constitution score. But if he's ever slain, they're all immediately ruined, even if he is subsequently returned to life. To consume a draught, a blood Magus pricks his skin, automatically bring forth the desired effect.
Just like,
Another individual can drink their blood. This, the last time I read something like this was like a douchebag cleric that like did horrible things to his holy water. Like, and that was and then they clapped story, but like this is the same level, but genuine. No, you don't store
yeah,
spells in blood. Basically, you brew an edgier version of potions, like a normal wizard. Like, that sorcerer I've given an example of. A normal sorcerer would be like, well, I'm going to actually try to create a variety of potions for the usage, for our usage. I have the ability to make a potions of bear strengths, and here you go. Here you go, my berserker friend. Thank you, grog used to kill. Meanwhile, Blood Mage is like, I also made like a potion. Shows you a vial of blood, and meanwhile, the grog
Oh,
barbarian's like,
no, 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 it
fuck
says you can't
no.
even put it. It says you can't even put it in a vial. The blood magus cannot store his blood in a container to share at a later
You
time.
have
The
to
blood drop
suck
must be.
on his finger. Oh my god. Oh my
yeah,
god.
you have to basically like, you know,
You have to lick his
yeah.
wound. Oh my god.
As
Oh,
a
this
full
is
round
even
action.
worse. This is even worse.
You spend an entire round of combat of people fighting to the death, ironically licking someone's open blood wound.
I. This is where. Oh my god, this is worse than the actual potion brewing. Oh,
Yeah,
mama. This is becoming true namer the more I look at this. Oh
Yeah.
no. It might make it. We don't know yet. I don't know yet. We're halfway through. I don't know yet. Oh, fuck me. From 5th level on, they can create a homunculus. You could cut yourself to give life to a companion creature. A homunculus, which isn't that. It's not like the crappiest. It's like a weak little monster. It can be useful sometimes.
honestly, homunculus are pretty fragile.
No, I mean like as like a little secondary familiar sort of thing. Like, for little situational, like little bit of fine motor stuff, I'm trying to look on the bright side because this is
No.
awful.
Yeah, but it starts at one hit die and gains hit die for each level you gain maximized at 6 hit die.
Oh,
The game's gonna die to a straight AoE.
they must permanent. Oh, it's even shittier than that. A blood magus must permanently sacrifice 1 hit point as a part of the creation process. Oh, oh wow. Oh wow. And you don't get it back
Oh.
when it dies, I don't think.
No.
By touching the homunculus, the blood magus can transfer his wounds to the creature up to 1 HP per level with each touch. What the fuck?
So basically, you transfer your own wounds to it.
And you can only do up to 1 HP per level. You can only transfer up to 10 HP.
Not to mention, if it dies, you take 2d10 backlash damage.
2d10 points of damage. Also, on top of that, its hit die is garbage.
Yeah. And also, if the Megacide homunculus also explodes.
Don't insult people who injure themselves in class, Jim. This is way worse. So, I don't. uh, Okay, blood seeking. At 6th level, a blood magus can imbue their spells with the ability to draw blood from their targets. You have to injure yourself, of course, doing 3 points of damage to the blood magus. Damage reduction if a blood magus has any doesn't apply, by the way, so you just take it and fuck you. A blood-seeking spell deals an extra 1d6 points of damage to each target that takes damage from the spell. It only applies to spells that deal hit point damage. So enervation effects or things like confusion or, limiting abilities like what's the Evard's Black Tentacles?
And also, any creature types that don't have circulating blood are immune to the extra damage.
Oh, this is so fucking terrible. It doesn't even do the bleed effect, which is a real effect, by the way, in Dungeons and Dragons. It's just a straight up minus X amount of HP per round. Oh boy, thicker than water at 7th level and higher. Their vital fluids are partially under their own control. Whenever you're injured, the blood withdraws from the wound, which gives them damage reduction 1 to anything but bludgeoning.
Wow, character level 12 minimum, DR1 bludgeoning. What a bargain.
I, I hate this class so fucking much.
Looks like you won't be killed by those house cats now.
No, you still die because house cats, I think, do more than 1 damage.
Yeah, but I have to each attack individually. You progress, you became immune to house cats.
I, fuck Christ.
Unless they bite you, you still take the damage, because that's technically all three
You can
damage.
still die to a fucking house. Three more levels. Let's see. Let's see. It's still at True Namer level for me right now. Let's see. At 8th level and higher, a blood magus can awaken blood. That means they can bestow momentary consciousness on an opponent's blood. If he hits a foe with a melee touch attack, the opponent's blood tries to get free of its
Once again,
confinement.
Arcade Caster waddling into melee for who knows what reason.
The pressure disrupts the victim's tissues, dealing 10d10 points of damage. Which, that ain't bad. It's terrible. It's not good, though.
But it's only usable once per day.
It's not bad, but by this point, your spells match it. Yes.
Yeah, by then, yeah. Like that, it's a melee touch attack. By then, you should not be using any damage abilities that require you to be within melee range.
Also, I think I've seen this spell before done more funny in a homebrew thing where it was like a necromancer variant that had the ability to awaken the skeleton in his opponent. That one has the added bonus of if it fails its will and fortitude save, they just fucking die and you get a crappy skeleton companion. Like it's shittier than that.
Like the biggest thing, like I said, is the fact that it's melee.
Why would your blood
Yeah,
want
it's
to leave your body?
melee.
It just wants to escape. It wants to. It's like your skeleton. It wants to crawl out of your skin. But a blood magus can try to use it again later in the day if the previous attempt failed. It's an instant effect. By the way, it doesn't work on like half of everything.
Yeah.
Infusion. At ninth level, you can do a one-time distillation of their own blood. After drinking it, you get 2 points increase to Constitution. Woo! Do you know
At
what you
least you
get as
now
the
have more
capstone?
HP to cut yourself with.
You know what you get at the capstone?
What?
I'm just going to show everyone what you get. Okay, here's what you get. You see the bondage clown enter the bugbear and he's confused. And there he is leaving the bugbear. And the bugbear is still confused. I don't fucking blame it.
It's literally a shittier version of Tree Stride. Teleport from the inside of one tree to another tree.
Oh
Instead,
god.
travel from inside one creature to another through their blood.
By the way, it causes a horrendous amount of blood to explode out of them, which horrifies everyone without doing any damage whatsoever. You
Yeah, I have
burst
to point out that
expl-
Tree
Oh no
Stride
no
is
no
a
no.
fourth level.
Here it is. You can burst force explosively from the creature's body, dealing 10d6 points of damage unless the creature makes a fortitude save. But you also stun yourself, by the way, if you fail the will save. What a shit fucking class.
So basically, so basically, what he's doing is he's actually killing some random person just to teleport.
I'm just envisioning.
Yeah.
I'm just envisioning like what happens is like I'll meet you at the city and you go to the city. Where's the blood magus? And he just erupts violently out of a small 10-year-old child, killing him horribly, and he's instantly arrested and destroyed by the town guard.
Yeah, then in response he just slits his wrist.
I mean, regardless, he's be bleeding on the ground.
Oh, oh no. By the way, this is so goddamn terrible. I'm going to be honest, this is True Namer for me.
This true namer.
Yeah, I will say the class isn't weak per se, but the everything about it is just so
Flop.
stupid.
It's
Like
stupid and you have to
seriously.
play as a you every part that you get is worse than what you'd get if you just used your meta magic feat. And on top of that, it's a worse translation of every ability you could have gotten as a sorcerer.
Yeah,
Every
I
possible
mean,
option. And on top of
any,
that, you lose 2
any
spell
class
levels.
any class where you literally have to engage in self-harm is not a good class.
Yeah, I should point out that the losing the two cast levels uh completely negates their level one ability and then some. Because that only increases their caster level by one when they use a blood
You
component.
literally become worse as you
Yeah.
go into this class. You make worse potions, you have worse meta magic equivalents, you can do things that the others can do less, you can store less spells on you than you would if you just had scrolls. Every
But look, you
possible
got a little blood buddy that explodes if a light breeze hits it.
and you take a shitload of damage from that too. Oh, and
Yeah.
last but not least, your potions only work for you, buddy, unless you want them to suckle on your injured finger. Like a
If
weird,
you're a woman,
disgusting, horrible fetish.
or if you're a woman, they can go down on you at that time of the month.
No, 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 please, please, no. No, no,
This is True Namer. And we
no,
broke the Diopsid! Yes!
no.
Now you know my pain! The pain of
The
blood
fuck?
magus! I hate. Okay, that's so terrible. Let's just do the last one for tonight.
Okay, what? I
Oh, no, 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 no. Don't say anything anymore. Don't say anything. No, let's pretend the previous class did not exist and we're just starting on our sixth class of the night effigy master.
Yeah, that is our sixth class. I don't know. There was like just I looked at the previous page. All I saw was static, and I heard the sounds of pigs being butchered for like the last half hour. I don't know what the fuck that was about, but you know.
yeah, yeah. No, I forgot everything.
Check your audio balance, Mrs. You're a little quiet for me now.
Oh shoot, yeah.
There you go.
So
So our sixth and final class.
I was kind of like rocking around because this kind of yeah, or for some reason I don't know this. I can't remember.
I don't know. All I do know is that our last that the sixth class we're going to look at, and the last one we'll cover for tonight because they are very much in depth, and we're about 2 hours in, is the effigy master. So the effigy master, the concept of it is that they effectively are interested in building constructs and kind of like puppets they control. It's a very weird variant of Minion Mancer. They essentially try to create Pinocchios. Like it's like Pinocchio if you built a death robot. That's kind of how they do.
Yeah, it's like they create a bunch of lifelike automatons of various living creatures.
So just adaptation. For those who really enjoy the concept of the FSG Master, they might wish the Prestige class offered more than 5 levels. It'd be simple enough to extend the class for 5 more levels, continuing the implied progression in all areas. That means they would gain an ability at 7th and 9th level, at least, and perhaps another ability at 10th. The 7th level ability would allow new effigies to be created more cheaply. 9th level ability could further improve an effigy's attack, defense, and saving throws by an additional 1. The final ability, in return for not gaining another caster level at 10th level, might allow the effigy to possess their toy up to 10 minutes in a manner similar to a magic jar spell. Not really Prometheans. You're not creating like artificial life. They're more like robotic servants.
There are black servants that are given a realistic outside skin.
Yeah. So it's a 5 level class, and they expect you to give up 1 spell level or 2 if you extend it. I actually kind of like that they have the adaptation. I'll be honest. I kind of like that they did this in this book. At least whenever they
Yeah,
bring it up.
Yeah, I have to point out that for much longer lasting games, the biggest thing about being able to expand to 10th level is that if you reach epic, you can go into level 11 onward in the class. Because only prestige classes that are 10 levels or longer can advance into epic levels. Otherwise, you'll just have to take more levels of one of your base classes.
Which I kind of like that the adaptation allows you to potentially continue an effigy master, even if it may not be the best in the world. I do remember this one somewhat. It's not the best in the world, but we'll go into it. You have a D4 hit die. To get into the class, you have to have craft leatherworking, metalworking, or woodworking of 10 ranks. You have to have knowledge arcana 5 ranks, spellcraft of 5, and you have to have at least a use magic device of 2 ranks. Not entirely too difficult, especially if you're a wizard. You have to have the ability to craft wondrous items, and you must have the simulacrum spell on a class spell list, whether or not you're able to cast it. So you have to have something that has the ability to cast simulacrum, which I think limits it to mostly just wizard and sorcerer. So what do you get out of this? Well, your first level, actually don't get a spells per day. Instead, you get craft effigy. An effigy master can create constructs known as effigies, which they go into in this book later on in page 151. Unlike other creators, he needs not possess the craft construct feat to actually create this task, so it's a lot cheaper than making golems.
And a lot easier because craft construct requires quite a bit of caster
Material.
level for.
Caster level and materials. Effigies are a lot cheaper.
Yeah. Well, I should point out that basically the effigy it is a template you can apply to like
Mostly animals.
any any corporeal aberration, animal, dragon, giant, humanoid, magical beast, monsters, humanoid, or vermin.
So if you want to create like an army of robotic butlers with swords, you could. Or if you wanted to make a giant animatronic rabbit that, I don't know, kicks people in the face and makes distress noises to like make.
Or just do the regular power gamer move and make an effigy dragon. You know.
Yeah, screw you, I'm riding in my clockwork dragon. Uh, you also don't need the feat or ranks in knowledge, architecture, or engineering, by the way, to repair an effigy. So it's also easier to maintain.
Yeah, it basically allows you to craft mechanical minions without a lot of the caveats that usually come along with trying to do the
Which
craft construct stuff.
that's
Yeah.
actually really good for lower level because otherwise you're not going to really have the opportunity. If you've ever wanted to be the Mad Wizards, like, I want to make an army of robots and flesh golems and monsters, you can. Like, this is kind of your class. And the meat and potatoes of how effigies work are further in the book. Uh, if we have a little bit of time left over, I actually want to do a little bit into that, but otherwise we might call it after we finish this.
Honestly, it's just simply the usual stuff of converting the creature type to a construct.
Ah, okay. So
So,
basically, any summon animal, monster, or like humanoid figure, you just apply the construct template,
yeah,
and it
yeah,
has
yeah.
to
So,
be.
for example, they get a lot of immunities and they lose their Constitution score. They gain bonus HP depending on what their size is.
And on top of that, they have a material cost based on that too. So building a big fuck off dragon is quite expensive. Worth it
Yeah,
though. So at third level, they get what's called improved effigy. At third level or higher, you improve upon your creations, granting them a permanent +2 competence bonus on attack rolls, damages, and saves. This requires 1 day of work and costs 100 GP of supplies per hit die of the effigy. So it is pricey, but it allows you to make them even better.
and it has no XP cost.
And then there's Effigy Link. At 5th level or higher, an Effigy Master can create a supernatural bond between himself and one of his effigies. Because to give you an idea, you have the ability to make more of them, or other variants, depending on if you're not happy with the
Uh,
current one.
Yeah, to give you an idea, when it comes to like crafting constructs, you can just make as many as your money allows you, honestly. Money and downtime, I should say.
Now, in terms of effigies working with you, you tend to not. You actually, they don't limit how many you can make,
Yeah.
so
As
you
I
can have
said,
several.
because of the time and money costs involved with making them.
But they're a lot cheaper than constructs, so it's kind of worth it.
Well, the constructs are just a more
Well, I mean,
discounted
like your
construct than your
traditional
typical
ones,
golems. Yeah.
like if you're making craft constructs like golems, like, yeah, these are a lot cheaper. And last but not least, at their capstone, you get the ability to bond yourself with the ritual. You can sense your effigy's conditions and actually scry through them, which is pretty neat. It only works once a day, but it's nice. And on top of that, you gain a morale bonus on saving throws and caster level checks too if you're with them. You can only be linked to one effigy at any type though. And it's a pretty simple class. It's a pretty simple one. Do you want to look at it as a 5 level and then as the 10 level, since they did provide suggestions on how to further develop it?
I say either way, I would have to say it's an amazing class because I could not put enough emphasis on how much having a heavily discounted craft constructs effectively is, especially since you can just pick a wide range of creatures and just turn them into constructs and basically get most of their base abilities that aren't supernatural in nature.
I can't quite give it an amazing. It's not that I disagree with you, because having extra robotic minions and constructs are a very powerful type of creature. I have to grant you that. But the biggest limitation is actually your finances.
Yeah.
So I can't
Yeah.
give it
But
amazing.
Well, I'm just thinking of like standard wealth by level.
Oh
Well,
no, in
that's
standard wealth by level, you should at least have a couple of pretty nifty constructs to help you in this. It's just it really does depend on how generous your DM is in terms of handing money.
yeah, but that's like the same thing with artificer or any other class that's related to
True.
crafting. Like,
True.
Right.
Okay, I will say then it is an amazing ability because craft construct is something you don't usually get to touch. I've always had a soft spot for constructs, much to the ire of my rogue players because can't sneak attack, motherfucker. Stop making constructs and oozes, you asshole. What? I like
Fine.
constructs and oozes and aberrations. They're all cool.
I honestly don't mind.
I like my beep boop fuck you robots. Thankfully,
It's
3.5
fine.
has a feat that allows some of the sneak attacks to apply.
Yeah, that's why.
But no, I will say, yeah, it's actually a lot better than I remember. Because I think I originally gave
Yeah.
it something stupid like decent. No, that's the ability to just create an army. Because originally I thought it was only making the one because they kind of emphasized just the one in the picture. But no, it's as many as you can afford. Do you want to drown
Yeah.
them in an army of robot bats? Sure, you can do that. Do you want to destroy them with like your little robotic goblin army? Sure, you can do that.
I should point out for those of you unaware, minion mancy is one of the most powerful tactics in the D20 system. You basically have an extra body to do extra actions, has its own separate HP pool that might get the ire of the enemies instead of yourself.
I will say that the way construct minions work, though, is they kind of are in between animal and intelligent companions and the undead. Because you do have to set up pre programmed orders traditionally. At least with constructs, you're supposed to.
Yeah.
The difference is,
But
unlike
they're a
the
lot more
undead,
advanced than most people. Those commands are a lot more like fluid than most people
on
think.
top of that, unlike the undead, they'll still you don't have to constantly operate on them. With the undead, if you're a necromancer, this is actually why necromancy kind of sucks as minion mancy. As as the as the necromancer, you have to focus your will completely through your puppets. You can't cast in the same turn. While with the effigy master, you can. Now, admittedly, if you want specialized commands, you have to take command of them instead of cast, but they're autonomous enough that usually, especially in fights, they can do their job. They won't attack your party members. You don't have to worry about that. Just set the parameters, set the order flow, and you're good. So, yeah, I can easily see why it is an amazing class. It's actually a lot better than I remember it, just because for some reason I thought you could only make the one effigy. Nah, just turns out that yeah, you're as limited as you are when your finances.
Yeah.
So yeah, all in all, we got through quite a few good classes, a couple of really awful ones.
Yeah, and one that we just wanna like
Oh
put
no, no,
in for our
well, what are you
memory.
talking about? That class never happened.
Yeah.
No,
We,
no,
we,
no, no. The acolyte of the flesh. That's what I was talking about. That thing was
oh,
terrible.
yeah, fuck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why do I get the feeling we just like talked about something really horrible less than 20
I
minutes
don't know,
ago?
but I would recommend we not mentally dwell on it.
Yeah, because we might, we might re-traumatize ourselves.
Good point. Good point. Ah, man. So that's the first third of this book. The next third includes, I think, the greatest class ever made. It is the class. It is the class of all time. I really
Seriously,
can't. I really can't.
I am really looking forward to
Yeah,
going
me
over.
too.
It is the class of all time, and then we have my least favorite fucking bard build. And on
Yeah.
top of that, we have some really weird ones like the geometer and the mind bender, which is also pretty fucking terrible.
And one of my favorites, Initiate of the Sevenfold Veil.
Yeah, there's so many. So next week, I think we're going to cover Rifts Part 2, but then after that, I think we can continue with I think we start with Enlightened Fist afterwards, yeah?
I think there's one before that.
Elemental Savant.
I keep forgetting
Yeah.
that one. I keep forgetting that one. So with that in mind, have an excellent night. The Diopsid shall go back to their hive to attend to their little cat.
Yeah.
And like I said, next week we're gonna look at Rift some more because those are some interesting classes, and it's a very jank book that leads to some very fun things. Night, everyone.
Hey.